Alrighty then. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Matthew Baker of Beautiful New York Tours. A lady who's followed me on social media for a long time and knows the various paths that my strange and different interests have led me down, asked me about a column that I used to write for a boxing website. It's true, boxing is the only sport that I have ever followed with any particular enthusiasm, and she suggested that I combine my interests in one of these videos. Well, if you're going to talk about boxing in New York City, you have to talk about Sugar Ray Robinson. The young man who was born in Georgia and grew up in Detroit under the name Walker Smith came to New York City when he was 12 years old, dropped out of DeWitt Clinton High School, and took on the name Ray Robinson because he borrowed a friend's birth certificate in order to get around the age restrictions of a boxing program that he wanted to join in Harlem. The Salem Crescent Athletic Club had an age restriction, and he wanted to get around it. When the manager there said that the young man's fighting style was sweet as sugar, a legend and a nickname were born. Now, Sugar Ray started early, at 19 years old, at Madison Square Garden. He had amassed an incredible amateur record with no defeats and over 80 wins. But of course, fighting as a professional was a different kettle of fish. But it wasn't for Sugar Ray. He had 40 victories before he took his first defeat at the extraordinary hands of fellow New Yorker Jake LaMotta, the legendary Bronx Bull. This first of their 6 matchups was at Madison Square Garden, which of course in those days was the ne plus ultra of boxing venues. Other important boxing venues where Sugar Ray Robinson fought include Yankee Stadium and the Polo Grounds. Now, of course, the Polo Grounds quite famously no longer stands, though the spot where it once was is easily accessible, and neither Madison Square Garden nor Yankee Stadium are still in their original locations, though, of course, the institutions are still there and still quite venerable. But all of this was interrupted for a short period of time, of course, by World War II, when Sugar Ray Robinson went into the Army. In the Army, he became quite friendly with fellow boxing legend Joe Louis, and they remained very close friends for the rest of their lives. But Joe Louis, of course, went on to go on tour, doing various promotional films and things like that for the Army and for the war effort. Robinson had a rather different destiny. He was doing his basic training at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, and he was supposed to ship out, and he didn't show up. Now, no one knows exactly why he didn't show up, because he disappeared from Fort Hamilton in early April. A few days later, he woke up in the hospital at Fort Jay on Governor's Island and realized he had fallen down the stairs one night, and he'd been in a coma for several days. But it's good that he woke up when he did, because he had been under suspicion and investigation for desertion, though that, of course, turned out not to be the case because he was unconscious. So you might say in some ways that that was Sugar Ray's first knockout. Now, outside of the ring, Sugar Ray was synonymous with the neighborhood of Harlem. He loved the neighborhood, and the neighborhood loved him. He opened various businesses, none of which lasted long. Like a lot of brilliant athletes, well, they're like brilliant artists. They don't have much head for business, and he was a good example of that. By the time he died, he had gone through all $4 million of the dollars he had won in the ring and was living in rather dire straits. But for a time, on 124th Street and what is today Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, you could count on seeing Sugar Ray in his pink Cadillac outside the bar and restaurant that he owned and managed. It was always one of the great to-be-expected sights in Harlem of the day. Now, one of the things that Sugar Ray loved most about the sport he practiced was the showmanship of it all. He loved being under the lights and under the spotlight, and he loved being a star. There are some who say that he invented the tradition of the athletic entourage. He was also quite famous for ducking certain rather dangerous opponents. One infamous example of this is when he told his manager, "I'm too pretty to fight Charlie Burley." The notion that Charlie Burley might mess up that beautiful movie star face he had. But he used that face well in his time after the ring when he went about becoming a song and dance man. He performed at the Apollo Theater with his friend Sandman Sims, the great tap dancer, who had taught him footwork in the ring. Sims had also started as a boxer, but gone into entertainment quite early. There is wonderful video footage to be found. A quick Google search will yield it, of Sugar Ray dancing next to Gene Kelly on a 1950s, I think it's the 50s, it might be the early 60s, TV show. But it is a sight to see. For this and other sights to see, once it is safe to come back to New York, safer than it would be to step into the ring with Sugar Ray, I hope you will please check me out at Beautiful New York Tours. You can search Beautiful New York Tours on Facebook or email me at baker.tours@yahoo.com. Again, that is baker.tours@yahoo. Thank you very much.